Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Reader's Journey. Today we have Bob Burg, the co-author of The Go-Giver. Bob, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you. The honor is mine, Alex.
So I think a good place to start would be to talk about the title of your book, because a lot of people know what a go-getter is, but not as many people know what a go-giver is. Can you explain the differences between the two?
Sure. Well, we would say, and it's interesting that you asked that. It's a great question because a lot of people assume that a go-getter is the opposite of a go-giver, and it's really not. We love go-getters because go-getters are people of action. They take action. And as you know, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a business person, you can have the best thoughts, nicest intent, greatest ideas, but unless action is put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. So we love go-getters. Now, a go-giver is someone who is absolutely, totally focused on bringing immense value to others. So when you combine a go-giver, a person of action, and a go-getter, and a go-giver, a person focused on bringing that value to others, you have a very powerful combination. We would say the opposite of a go-giver is a go-taker. That's the person whose focus, right, is on the take, without having added value or brought value to the other person, to the process, to the situation.
Yeah, it's such a great concept, and it makes for a memorable book title because not many people have heard of a giver.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I'd love to dive into your book, and I know we can't dive into every lesson in the book because there's so many, but there are a few that I love to cover. And so to set the stage for people that haven't read the book, it's a parable about a go-getter named Joe who's having business trouble. So he reaches out to a legendary business consultant named Pindar, who agrees to mentor him and take him under his wing, and they go around to meet several go-givers. Now, one of the first lessons that Pindar teaches is that your worth is determined by how much more you give in value than take in payment. Now, Bob, this sounds a bit counterintuitive because it sounds like you're losing money by giving more than you're taking, but that's not true, is it?
No, and it's another great question. And to understand this, we simply need to understand the difference between price and value, right? Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, and this is why we call it the law of value, value is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another human being that they'll willingly pay for it, be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. If we take a very quick example of an accountant who you hire to do your taxes and she charges you $1,000, well, that's her fee or her price. But what value does she give you in exchange? Well, she saves you well over $5,000 in taxes. She saves you countless hours of time. She provides you and your family with the peace of mind and the security of knowing it was done correctly. So she gave you well over $5,000 in value with everything, right? And so you feel great about it. You receive much more than what you paid for, but she made a very healthy profit because it was worth it to her to lease her time, her energy, her knowledge for that $1,000. In fact, in any free market-based exchange, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. In any free market-based exchange, there are always at least two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each of them come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. So that's really what the law of value is all about. You create such an immense experience for that person, both in the intrinsic value of your products or services and in every other aspect of it, the relationship itself, that these people feel great. They feel as though they receive much more than what they paid for.
Yeah, that's such an important concept to remember. It's like there's a difference between price and value, and the story in the book is about Ernesto and his hot dog stand. And so he has a certain price for the hot dog, but he's giving more value by remembering the kid's name, talking about their favorite cartoons and their birthday. So he's offering more value while keeping the price the same. And it's such an important concept to remember.
Thank you.
So I think another important lesson that Joe learns, and I learn as well, is that you can be a good person and you can also be rich. Because like Joe, I used to have this belief that you're either a good person but you're not rich, or you're a bad person but you're well off. Can you kind of debunk this belief for us?
Well, yeah, and Nicole Martin, the CEO in the story, explained that to Joe, that she was brought up as so many are. And as, by the way, the messages from the world around us, these are the messages we receive. Look at the politicians who say billionaires or millionaires shouldn't exist. Oh my goodness, what a horrible message. Now, if you make your money dishonestly, of course, that's one thing. But when you've provided great value and people have willingly paid for that, and you've gotten rich as a result of serving so many people with that phenomenal value, why shouldn't you exist? You should thrive. Absolutely. And most people who, especially to the degree that we live in a free market where no one's forced to buy from you, the only way you can earn a very significant income is by providing exceptional value to those who choose to do business with you. But when you think about the messages we get from the world around us, look you go to a movie, and let's say, if you remember the first Spider-Man movie, and one of my favorite prosperity authorities, Randy Gage, does a great vignette on this about all the negative money and prosperity messages in movies. So one of them he brings up is, and I remember this, the first Spider-Man movie, where Peter Parker is talking with his Uncle Ben about why they're not, wealthy, and Uncle Ben says, "Well, Peter, we may not be rich, but at least we're honest." Oh, what a terrible message to implant in the minds of kids who are watching this movie. What's the premise? That if you're honest, you won't be rich or prosperous. If you're rich or prosperous, it's because you're not honest. And this is not just one movie. This is pretty much every movie. It's pretty much so we get this from everywhere. And so it's no wonder why people on a subconscious or unconscious level have such negative feelings about money, and actually sabotage themselves from making money because of not feeling they deserve it or should have it, or it makes them a bad person, or no one's going to like them, or people are going to think they're this or that. Oh, horrible, horrible messaging.
Yeah, and I really love the example you give in the book about a teacher, and like she's a good person, but the thing is she only influences like 30 kids in a classroom. But then she goes on to create this educational software using games, and then she could influence 25 million kids. And
Yeah, and she's making a lot more money as a result, touching the lives. That's the law of compensation, which says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So it's not enough just to provide great value. That's important, but that represents your potential income. The number of people whose lives you actually, as you just said, who you impact with that value, that equals your actual income.
yeah, it's such a great. I love that. I love that part of the book. Uh, and then so there's another important lesson I love to cover, and is that most people believe that they should aim for a win-win situation, but there's actually one step above that where you focus on the other person's win. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that was really eye-opening.
Yeah, and that's so great that you brought that up, because we hear about win-win, okay, where both parties win, and of course that's good. We should always. But here's what Sam, the mentor in this part of the story, was really explaining to Joe. So often people will say win-win when what they really mean is, yeah, I want to win. If I have to allow you to also win, that's fine. But really, it's about me. It's about me winning. I want to make sure I don't. Well, I say win-win, but I really want to make sure I don't lose. And what Sam said is, throw that out. Instead, make your win all about the other person's win. Okay, now understand, there's nothing self-sacrificial about that, nothing martyrish, nothing. Remember, people aren't going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, or because you need the sale or need the money, or even because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you only because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so, because you've solved a need for them, or you've solved a problem, provided a need, made their life better somehow. So when you make your win about their win, okay, they're doing business with you. Now the sale has been created, and of course you're going to receive the appropriate income for that.
Yeah, it's such a good tip. I believe in the.
Focus on their win, right? This is why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value, right? So focus on their win, focus on the value you're providing another human being. The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a very natural result of the value you've provided.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful advice. I like how you say, be a friend, not a creditor. Don't keep score.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And so another interesting lesson that Pindar shares with Joe is that there are three universal reasons for working: survive, save, and serve. Can you elaborate on each one for listeners?
Yeah, well, we think about survival, which you have to do. I mean, we obviously have to earn an income in order to survive. Now, you also want to save, or really, it would be invest, but survive, save, and serve was a little easier to right to say, but it would be save or invest. That means you're responsible. You don't spend more than you're earning, and you make sure to invest. You pay yourself first. You put your money into an account, or it's going to grow. These are the things we need to do. But then, really, what you want to aim for is serve. Okay, you want to be able to take the prosperity that you've earned, and you want to be able to serve the world. However, it's congruent with your values. Now, the neat thing to understand is that you don't have to wait until you have the money in order to serve. In fact, the Go Giver is really about just making service a natural part of what you're doing. In fact, the way you're going to earn that money, okay, to survive is by serving another person. Okay, so it's really a cycle. It's not like one of them's first, second, and third. They just sort of all go cyclically and build upon the other.
Yeah, I like in the Q&A section of the book, you call it like a job, a career, and then calling. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was really eye-opening for me. And speaking of serving, I really like the part where Joe first meets Pindar, and he says one of the secrets to success is that usually the more successful someone is, the more open they are to sharing their secrets with them. And that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but I found that also to be true. Can you kind of explain why people who are more successful tend to share their secrets with people?
Yeah, and if you recall in the story, that was Pindar having a conversation with Larry King, the talk show host. It's probably many now who are watching and listening don't even know who Larry King is. But back in the day, he was, the big interviewer who, interviewed all the people. And so that was actually based on a conversation I had with Mr. King when we were both in the green room when we were speaking at the same conference. And I asked him that question. I think I'd asked him about Michael Jordan or something, and he said that yeah, you can get to a certain level of greatness and not be a sharing person or not really care about the success of others. To a certain point you can, but to really go to that level of greatness, what we would call stratospheric success, you're most likely the kind of person, you're not operating on the competitive plane. That doesn't mean you're not a great competitor, but you're not operating on that plane. You're operating more on the creative plane. And those kinds of people tend to be the ones that they enjoy success for its own sake, and they want others to experience success. Now, that doesn't mean all of them, of course. We could all cite examples of people who've just done amazingly well, and yet there's always exceptions. But the general rule is when you have a person who has really achieved some just outstanding success, yeah, they're typically the ones who they want to bring others along and they want to open it up for everyone.
Yeah, it's such a cool like fact of life is that usually the people that are successful, they want to bring other people up. Like all of the authors that I reached out to that are successful, they were really open to coming on the podcast and talking about their book and and sharing their time and like advice with me. So yeah, I would highly recommend, ask for help, ask successful people for advice, and more often than not, they'll be happy to share with you.
Yeah, when you think about it, it makes intuitive sense because again, in a free market, the only way that you will earn money or earn success, however you want to define it, is by sharing with others, by providing value to them. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's part of who these people are. It's who they are, and because of that, it's what they do.
Right. And I think some people that might be listening might think that only people who are rich and successful can be go-givers, but that's not the case now, is it?
Well, no, you get to that point by being a go-giver, and that's the key. See, and some people say, well, yeah, well that that this go-giver stuff, placing other people's interests first, and focusing on bringing value to them, that's all great after I have the money and I can do that, but I need the money right now. I need to. And so I would ask that person respectfully, so let's do kind of a thought experiment with this, and let's say that you are my prospective customer, and I'm the salesperson about to do a presentation, and I really need the money. And so because of this, I don't have time to focus on bringing value to you. I'm just trying to get your money. So I go in there, and you can tell that, yeah, I'm asking you questions, but it's really just so I can figure out how to close the sale. When you ask me questions or have objections, I get a little bit defensive, and I'm a little bit short with you because, well, after all, these objections are standing in the way of my money, right? I'm constantly trying to close. In other words, what you can sense is that I'm more interested in your money than I am in serving you. Now, my question would be to you, are you more likely or less likely to buy from me right now?
Yeah, less
And
likely.
chances are it's less likely. So now let's take this a different way. I'm that same person. I still need the money. I'm just starting out. I need the money. I realize that as a human being, I am programmed to be self-interested, right? Because that's how we are. That's how, right? But here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to deny my self-interest, but what I am going to do is I'm going to suspend it. I'm going to place it to the side where it needs to be so that I can focus on bringing immense value to you. So during the presentation, I ask questions. These are insightful questions, and I'm listening to you. I'm listening simply to understand your true needs, wants, and desires. When you have questions or objections, I take the time to answer. I'm very open to them, and I welcome them because I want you and me both to understand where it's coming from. So we go into, then we look at the premise of the objection, so we can both determine what it's really based on, and then we can bring that to a conclusion and advance the process. Only when I truly understand your needs, your wants, your desires, do I then connect the benefit of my product or service with those needs, wants, and desires. You can tell, and you can tell that you can tell that my focus is on you and bringing immense value to you. Are you more likely or less likely to buy from me right now?
Yeah, more likely now.
More. So being a go-giver isn't something you do after you have the money. It's the way that you build your business and have that money and so forth.
Yeah, and it's just like the thing we covered earlier. It's like focus on the other person's win and offer more value than the price you're taking in. Awesome. And so we've been talking about a lot about giving, but actually the last law is the law of reciprocity, where you also have to be open to taking and receiving. Can you talk about that last law?
Yeah, well, and it's actually receptivity. Reciprocity is actually another rule. It's not in this book, but it's a very valuable one. And Stephen, uh, not Stephen, um, Robert Cialdini, the great author of the book Influence, Science, and Practice, and his latest book, Persuasion, which is another wonderful, wonderful book, he talks about the law of reciprocity being that we as human beings have a natural need to give to others when they've given to us. Okay, and when used in a correct and ethical way, it's a wonderful way to communicate value and be able to. Now, in this, we're talking about the law of receptivity, which in this case simply means the ability to receive that which we've earned and that which another is willingly giving us. Okay, so in other words, we've created wonderful value for someone, and we've earned the sale, if we're talking in the business sense, and we're able to receive the money, the fee, the commission, what have you, with gratitude, knowing that it's something that we've earned based on the value we've given. But remember, a lot of people have trouble doing that because of those messages that we've received from whether it's upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, like we talked, and all the different social. And um, so in the story, Pindar did an exercise with Joe, the protege, where he asked Joe to breathe out and then hold that extended breath, the outgoing breath, to the count of 30, which there's no way Joe could do. And Joe quickly was struggling. He's gasping for breath. And Pindar says, "What's the matter, Joe? Can't do it?" And Joe says, "No, I can't just breathe out. I've got to breathe in as well. And Pindar jokingly said, well, what if I was to tell you it's been medically proven that it's actually healthier to breathe out than it is to breathe in? And Joe just laughed because, of course, that's absolutely silly. You can't do one or the other. You've got to do both in order to survive, in order to thrive. So we breathe out and we breathe in. It's not one or the other. Where we breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving, giving of value. We breathe in, which is receiving. And so, despite those messages that we get from the world around us, those anti money, anti prosperity, anti growth kinds of messages, the fact is, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work together in tandem, right? You're not a giver or a receiver, you're a giver and a receiver. But what you know is that the focus needs to be on the giving. And it's the same as, going to, and we talked about this early in the story, going to a fire, up to a fireplace and saying, well, you give me some heat and fire, and then I'll throw on some logs and some newspaper and light a match, right? Or going to the teller at the bank and saying, first you give me an interest payment, then I'll deposit some money. Well, life doesn't work that way. And successful people understand and they work within truths in order to survive and to benefit themselves and benefit others.
Yeah, I love those examples. Like focus on giving, but also be open to receiving.
And be exactly. You said it perfectly.
Awesome. So, Bob, one last question I like to ask all my guests is, like I see all the books on your bookshelf. I wonder if you could share one or two books that had a huge impact on your life and how they changed you.
Well, one of them is a book by, and it was published after he died, by Harry Brown, called "The Secret of Selling Anything." And more than just the secret. Yes, you've got that. In fact, hold that up for me if you don't mind. You seem to have it in a different edition than I have it. Where did you get that?
I just got it from Amazon.
From Amazon. Okay, interesting. They have that because I had bought it from another third party, and it's another. Okay, I like that edition that you have. And so to me, it was the most incredible, amazing book on understanding human nature. And he wrote these in the 60s. He wrote these two very brief manuscripts, never meant to be published. He actually was a best-selling New York Times best-selling author of several books on economics, on philosophy, on politics. But this book, I think he wrote this back when he led a sales organization, and this was just for his team. But after he passed, his widow Pamela found the two hard drives, each with the short manuscripts, and she told a direct response marketer about it, who told someone else. They published it. Make a long story short, they titled it and they published it. And so to me, it's two things. One, it's just understand. And Harry Brown had an understanding of human nature and an accepting and an honoring of human nature. He didn't try to change human nature. He worked within it in order to advance both himself and the world around him. And because of that, he was a very influential person, a great salesperson, one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And then the second part of the book is how to take your understanding of human nature and put it into the sales process. To me, it was absolutely one of the most remarkable books I've ever read in my life. I feel honored to have had the opportunity to read it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I loved your book, The Go Giver, and when you recommended the Secret of Selling Anything, I like bought it right away, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it. And so, is there like another book you could mention that had a huge impact on you?
Yeah, there's one of the books is called Thinking Fast and Slow, by Professor Daniel Kahneman. It's a large book. It's a book you'll read slowly, a little bit at a time. But this is really it really is a book on how people think. Again, it's human nature, and I love human nature. But it's how we don't even realize how we're making decisions. We think we do, but we really don't. And the studies he cited, as you can tell, there's a whole lot of because there's just gems on every single page. So that was another one that has meant a great deal to me. And there's another one, this book that I would suggest. It's called it's by a woman by the name of Annie Duke, Annie Duke, Thinking in Bets. And she was a world champion poker player. I don't think I've ever played poker in my life, but the reason I'm saying that is you don't have to be a poker player to benefit from the book. I'm more of a 21 blackjack player, but it doesn't matter. The premise of her book is that we don't have all the information we need. So when we make decisions, we need to do it based on the information that we have and the best possible odds of the right result taking place. And I got to tell you, her book has really, really helped me, not only in my decision-making processes, which it has, but it's helped me to hold myself back when making a statement that I don't know is totally right. And I'm tempted to make the statement. You know how so many people, they talk without having all the facts. Well, we can't have all the facts, but we can have enough of them to know that the statement is probably correct, or we can say based on my knowledge, or and so she's really helped me in that regard as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed Thinking Fast and Slow, and I'll make sure to check out Thinking in Bets as well. And Bob, so this has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm sure many listeners would love to learn more about you or connect with you. Where's the best place for people to find you on your website or social media?
Yeah, the best place is Burg, BURG.com, and there's a bunch of resources there. If they scroll all the way down to the bottom, they'll see where I am on all the different social media, that they're welcome to connect with me there. They can get chapter 1 of any of my books, including the original, The Go-Giver, and we have a new free mini course called Selling the Go-Giver Way. That is most likely already up there, but if not, the URL is thegogiver.com/selling.
Awesome. Well, for everyone listening, I really love The Go-Giver. I highly recommend you to get it, to read it. It's going to really change your life. And Bob, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come on the reader journey with us. It's been a pleasure having you on.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you for all the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Bob. Take care. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Reader's Journey. You can learn more about what's covered in today's podcast in the show notes below. If you enjoyed this podcast, the best way you can support it is by subscribing and leaving a positive review. If you're looking for reading tips or book recommendations, head over to alexandbooks.com. If you want to join my reading journey, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter by searching for Alex and Books. That's all for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you soon. Read on, everyone.